All right. Can we please rise to the flag?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, I'll be acting as city clerk.
Can you call the roll, please?
Jeff Diesel, Adam Blau, here. Ben Hendry,
Here.
Eric Strange,
Here.
Andy Ellison,
Here.
Lauren McIntosh.
All right. We're going to move past the minutes. We have the minutes of the last meeting and the finance committee meetings. We'll put that off till next month. For the visitors and communications, the first on the list is Fort Thomas Business Council Business Spotlight. And that's Northern Kentucky Medical Massage, Erica Laker.
Hi there, my name is Jessica Hurley. I am the,
Is that green line, Jessica?
oh, I'm sorry, it's not. Okay, here we go. Jessica Hurley, I am the vice chair of the Fort Thomas Business Council. I am here on behalf of the council. I just wanted to share a few things very quickly. We had a very successful networking meeting last Thursday. We had over 60 people come. That was from all over Northern Kentucky. It was something that we did jointly with the Chamber of Commerce. So I wanted to share that. I also wanted to invite you all to our next meeting, which will be June 27th at Fort Thomas Coffee. That is open to all business owners and residents of Fort Thomas. And I am also asked to share with you that we did have a recent ribbon cutting for Jackie Adams, who is a massage therapist at 18 North. So congratulations to her and her new business. And then I wanted to introduce another new business that is here, Erica Laker. She is a licensed massage therapist. If you want to come over and say a few things. I did learn that she was recently awarded Best of Northern Kentucky, so that's very impressive.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Nice to see you. I am Erica Laker, and we just moved my business to Memorial Parkway. So if you know Lee Whitty, the mortgage broker, we're on his bottom floor. I am very, very grateful to be here in Fort Thomas. The support we've received has been amazing, so thank you for everyone in the community. So a little bit about us. As it was just stated, we won Best of Northern Kentucky, and I became a massage therapist. It's a very interesting story. So at about the age of 14, I started to experience chronic pain. And doctors didn't really know what was going on. Eventually, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And at that time, you know, they gave me several medications, which later became dangerous and was pulled off the shelf. I don't know if anyone has experienced that or have family members that experienced that, but a very unsettling feeling. So I figured, you know what, there must be a better way. There must be something out there that could help me feel better. And so I received my very first massage at 18 years old. And it changed my entire world, and I knew that I wanted to provide that same relief to others. So what we specialize in specifically is medical massage, and I get the question all the time, well, what is medical massage as opposed to just massage? And I think it's just a very simple answer. Medical massage is the perception that massage is being received for medical reasons. Massage is one of the oldest forms of medicine. It's been around for over 5,000 years. There's a reason for that. It's helpful, it works, it makes people feel better. So we're in the business of improving people's quality of life. So, you know, how do you feel in your body right now? Kind of the end of the day. It's kind of hot outside today. You know, are you feeling tension in your shoulders? How's your lower back? Been clenching your jaw? Do you have trouble sleeping at night? These are all things that massage helps with. A lot of people don't know that massage can help with things like anxiety and depression. It can help strengthen the immune system. They've done studies with AIDS patients and increases the white blood cell count in AIDS patients. They've done studies with burn patients those that received massage as opposed to ones that did not. The burn patients that received massage healed much, much more quickly than those that didn't. So I think over the years, massage has gained the reputation of like, oh, that's something I do once a year. It's for my birthday. It's very indulgent. But no, it's a medical treatment, and that's the way we treat it. So please come see us. We would love to help you improve your quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful. Okay, now we're to recognition of former board and commission members, Tom Duckworth and Susan Wingard, both with Board of Adjustment.
I'm here.
Come on up.
We want to see you. She's a very tough act to follow.
First of all, we have your name plates for you that you can display someplace in your house, and a certificate of appreciation. This is the certificate is awarded to Susan Wingard to acknowledge the city's appreciation for your years of dedicated service on the Board of Adjustment. On behalf of the City of Fort Thomas, Kentucky, Mayor Eric Haas and City Administrator Matthew Kramer, we send our utmost appreciation for your thorough dedication to the city and helping to continue to make Fort Thomas a great community. Given on this 20th day of May, 2024 at the Fort Thomas City Council meeting. So there you go. Thank you so much. All right, Tom Duckworth. Okay, we will pass that on to him. All right, now we have the Building Safety Month. Proclamation for Building Safety Month. Susan, thanks again. We really appreciate all your time and effort with the Board of Adjustment.
It was a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Building Safety Month, May 2024. Whereas the City of Fort Thomas is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of diligent guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And whereas each year in observance of the Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local, state, and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Now, therefore, I, Eric Haas, Mayor of the City of Fort Thomas, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2024 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, I encourage all our citizens to join us as we participate in Building Safety Month activities. So that's one. I have another one here. This week is National Public Works Week. Well, we would simply like to recognize the hard-working crews that maintain our beautiful city. They not only brave the winter weather and summer heat, but they provide essential services that lead us to healthier, happier, and a more vibrant Fort Thomas. Join us in celebrating our Public Works Department, and be sure to say hi and offer a thank you when you see them working hard in your community. So, now we are to public portion. William Tweehus is first on the list.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of City Council. My name is William Tweehus, and I have recently discovered an ordinance related to the keeping of fowl that I find conflict with. The ordinance in question dates back to 1941, stating that it is illegal to keep ducks within the city of Fort Thomas. No reason is given. At face value, this ordinance seems reasonable, as ducks are loud and can fly, which could disturb residents. However, I believe that there is a certain species of duck that should be exempt from this ordinance. That species is the Indian runner duck. Indian runner ducks are a species of duck that have wings yet are incapable of flight. Indian runner ducks are also often said to be quieter than chickens, which are currently legal within the city limits. Indian River ducks have also been known to go into coops at night, very similarly to most poultry. Indian River ducks, like chickens, are commonly used for egg production and are said to roost an egg nearly every other day. If a duck of this species were to escape from captivity, we would have no need to fear of them becoming an invasive species, since they have many natural predators found in Fort Thomas, such as raccoons and coyotes. Since these ducks share many traits with chickens, I believe the keepers of these ducks should have to follow similar laws as to those that must be followed by those who keep chickens, as opposed to the keeping of this species of duck being illegal altogether. To sum up all that has previously been stated, I believe that you should consider the legalization of Indian River ducks within the city of Fort Thomas under the same restrictions as chickens because they cannot fly, they are quieter than most poultry, they have many natural predators within Fort Thomas, and they are often used for egg production. Thank you for your time.
Okay, that was impressive. You stated the problem, you offered solutions, you were concise to the point. That was very good. See you up here sometime in the future, okay? Run for city council. Can we look into that?
William, I've talked to your mom, but we need to talk to you, and we haven't got to talk yet about it. So what I'd like to do is meet with you, and then we'll go over some options, and then I'll present that to council after we talk. Is that good with you? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We make change.
Tiffany?
I don't know if I need the microphone, I was gonna talk louder than it is. Okay, in terms of the proposed zoning, I'd just like to reiterate that in talking with the majority of the citizens in Fort Thomas, the residents want to keep the small town feel of our town. They like the 2 stories with the roof. If you start at 471, where US 27 starts and go down to Woodville, go from Woodville all the way to North Fort Thomas, where it becomes another city. If you start at the intersection of Highland and Fort Thomas Avenue and go down to where St. Teresa is, again, 127, all of those structures are 2.5 stories. You may find 1 or 2, like the one that CT Consultants brought up in the Midway, but all of them are that size. So I think what the residents are asking for is that to be true in all 5.2 square miles of our city, in the CBD, along US 27, and really anywhere where we could put a huge building. I happen to be talking to somebody that graduated from Highlands High School. She's a sophomore in college, and One Highland came up. And again, nobody is against One Highland. I just don't think we want other buildings of that mass in the city. And the question she posed as a sophomore in college is, why would we be proposing more like buildings or the ability to have more like buildings of that size in Fort Thomas if we're not 100% sure that the first one is working? I didn't really know how to answer her question, but I did encourage her to come and talk to council about that very issue. So again, I think height is an issue in the zoning proposals. I know that the 50-foot height limit is in a lot of these different zones. We know it's wrong today. We'd like it fixed in the new code. And so I'm bringing that to your attention now. And again, I know we've referred to it a bit, but since we haven't done a community plan in over 5 years, there's been a lot of changes, both technology, both in terms of the citizens and how people are working. I just think it's time for us to talk to our citizens again and get more engagement on what they want. And we don't really know where some of these proposals are coming from. And when I think about the folks that we elected for council, we did not, and I've heard this, if I've heard it one time, I've heard it 50 times, and that is, you were elected, so therefore you know what the citizens want. I don't think that that is true at all. I think that we trusted that you would each make decisions that would be in the best interest of what the majority of Fort Thomas wants, not the minority. And so even if you're a business owner, even if you own rentals, even if you have a pet project, or you have something that's close to your heart that you want to do, in the end, you can't be here for you. You have to be here for the citizens and what they want. And though some of these ideas may be good ideas down the road, when I talk to seniors that are graduating from college and I ask them what they want, they're not saying they want to live in a one-bedroom rental. They're saying that they want to have home ownership just like their parents had. My own kid says to me when I talk to him about his future, my youngest, I would say to him, you're probably going to move out of Fort Thomas. No, he loves Fort Thomas. And I would say that the majority of you all have all benefited from growing up in this town and reaping really the benefits of a small town. And those benefits just are priceless. And when I look at like what's going on down by Lowe's, when we talk about a smart corridor, I mean, that looks horrible across from Lowe's. But even if you go down that way, there still aren't large buildings like we're proposing that people can have. And so, I want to give credit to people like the Pendry family who, took care of the library. I mean, I remember going into that as a child. Or even Bob Heil, who kept his building in character with the town. Or there's a couple more that I'm forgetting to mention. The Schoen building, what Ashley Schlaughter did to the Schoen building. How amazing was that? And when I think about, if you compare one Highland to what you did with the restaurant, Green Line, I mean, they couldn't be more night and day different. And in my opinion, and I have kids in school, so I talk to a lot of parents that live in town, and they absolutely love Green Line. You know why? Because it represents the best of the old and the best of the new. And so, again, I would implore each of you to think about what decisions that you make when it's time to make decisions on this zoning. We don't want historic districts to look like Fort Lauderdale. And we don't want Beachmont Avenue along 27. We just don't. We're families. We're neighborhoods, all 5.2 square miles. And again, I would ask that you go travel around Fort Thomas. Even if you live here, go take the drive. And go over by Norwood and see where they put up 3-story buildings close to the street. And there's zero retail. It's not working. And I don't think that Fort Thomas should, I'll be finished in a minute. I don't think Fort Thomas should be one of those cities that follows what other people do. The house across from me, and I live on the south side, sold in 6 days. So people desire to live here for what it is right now, not what a few people think it should be. We want to be the Green Line, the best of yesterday, and modernize in a way that still keeps our small town. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sorry, Beth Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Beth Johnson. I am the Executive Director of Cincinnati Preservation Association. I'm here to speak in favor of extending the overlay to the Tower Park area. I listened to last council meeting in the discussion and wanted to add my perspective from having worked for over 15 years in 4 different municipalities in preservation zoning and permitting. Last year I was invited to speak to this council about the importance of historic preservation in Fort Thomas. So thank you again for that opportunity and for moving forward with establishing your existing historic districts into the zoning code, as that is an important move for transparency and consistency. I don't need to tell you how impressive the history and historic fabric that Fort Thomas has. And today we are here talking about the Tower Park overlay area, which is arguably the most historically significant area of Fort Thomas. It is what the city is named after. One of the things that constituents want most when they come to permitting review is transparency, predictability, fairness, and also property value protections. By putting this area under an HPO versus the process outlined in the current deed restrictions, all of these will be achieved, and the residents will have clear guidelines of what they can and cannot do, as well as a process for approval. Currently in the deed restrictions, they require all alterations to be made to the city administrative office, and they must be reviewed within 60 days or automatically approved. The standard laid out is vague, and a lot is left up to interpretation. One could interpret that the only changes permitted are using the exact same materials. What happens when those materials aren't made anymore? What happens if that material becomes too expensive for people to afford? How would you determine what is the appropriate alternative? There's nothing in the deed restrictions that allow you to interpret what appropriate alternative materials are. What happens if a property owner doesn't agree with the interpretation of the staff? There's no process outlined for appealing the decision. By having an HPO over this area, you would allow for a process for approval and even appeal. I'm also a trainer with the National Alliance for Historic Preservation Commissions. This is an organization that goes across the country to different local preservation and design review boards to train them on a range of issues with running a local preservation board. One of the foundational trainings we do is how to have a legally defensible commission. Not having an appealable process would deny property owners their due process, and decisions could be considered arbitrary and capricious. Basically, their future is left up to the interpretation and mercy of one person. This could potentially lead to hard to defend legal challenges. To the statement that the deeds are working just fine, what happens if property owners change or city administration change, and all of a sudden property owners don't agree with the city interpretation? Also, what are the repercussions if someone violates the deed restrictions? How does the city enforce that? Do they take the property owner to court since it's a civil matter every time someone violates it? When you have an HPO, there's a process for the violations, there's a process for approval, there's a process for appeals. With deed restrictions, there's very little scrutiny that the land will be permanently protected if the restrictions depend on the interest of private parties. There's no third party to legally enforce the agreements. I would think it was in the city's best interest to adopt the HPO standards for the Tower Park Historic Preservation Overlay Zone. I think it's probably in the city's best legal interest, as well as for the city as a whole. The Fort Thomas is named after this place. It's in your seal. And it's one of those things that it's not just Fort Thomas history, it's American history. And it deserves to be protected and it deserves to have the gold standard of having a local historic district. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to follow her up real quick and just say that the last meeting we had with the council members and Alyssa was probably the best meeting I've had so far. I think that it was obvious that Alyssa was listening, the council was listening, and you know, it's not that anyone's pro-business or pro-Fort Thomas. We're trying to find a balance that still saves our community and the values that people moved here for, and still allow us a chance to modernize a little bit. And a lot of the guidelines and stipulations that came out and that we all agreed on created a lot of overlay to protect what people are asking for. And there's still a lot more discussion we have, but I do think, I can't speak for everybody on the council, but I feel like it was the best path we had moved forward to protect what people are looking for. And I hope to continue that discussion. And we have been fighting, everybody's been fighting for what they believe is right. And I just want you guys to know that we are listening. And I think a lot of great things that came out of the meeting. There's a lot more things to come. I think they've done a nice job of putting that together personally. I just wanted to say that. Thanks to you guys and what you brought up. I think we are listening. I hope to say, I think so.
Okay, Melanie? Nope. Okay, Jessica? Jessica Grilly? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, that's right. It was early at the beginning. John?
Thank you. I'm Joan Ferris, 66 Bernie Lane. I'm also just have a small little area of focus regarding the zoning, and that is the neighborhood commercial office district. It's a new zone that they're have proposed to incorporate. The area that concerns me the most is the top of Bivouac. It's a tiny little small building on a very small lot. They're trying to add this to the neighborhood commercial office zoning, which is the Jeff Weiler massive amount of land, massive amount of business. With a couple places on Memorial, not massive amount of business, but next to all kinds of open land, which is next to multi-family units. It doesn't fit. The word commercial does not fit in a neighborhood. So to call it neighborhood commercial just doesn't make sense. Combining Bivouac, I just call it Bivouac, to Jeff Weiler, they're not the same. Don't zone something to make it be seen the same. They're not. There are three designations of uses in the new NCO. One is by right, which means no questions asked. You get to have an office, or a retail, or residential over non-residential. Clear cut, no debate. Restricted, meaning you can't build a hotel there. Build a hotel at the top of Bivouac now. Good for that great decision. You can't have a brew pub, and you can't have food trucks. All are good. I don't know if those are eligible for appeal to the different boards to get waivers on them to allow of that, I'm not sure. The other piece that concerns me is the conditional use. Drive-through is a conditional use. They do have to ask for approval. Is a drive-through an Arby's, a Wendy's, a Big Daddy liquor store, a Mike's Car Wash? You drive through all of those. Are all of those, if they approach one of the commission, the appointed commission, and they say, sure, put in a Big Daddy's. They'll love it at the top of Bivouac. Another is vehicle fueling. Is that a gas station? Is it just an EV charging pit on an empty lot after the buildings are torn down? I don't know. It's not set in stone. It can be. It could be. And the third is vehicle sales, rental, or service. So it cannot be a used car lot. That sounds like vehicle sales to me. A Jiffy Lube, that sure sounds like service, vehicle service. A drop-off location for Hertz rental cars, rental is one of the possibilities as well. Conditional uses might seem, the fact that they've listed these conditional, and those, by the way, were taken right from Elisa's presentation, those definitions, not the questions of could be as Big Daddy's, those were my words. But listing these as conditional uses might seem like a safeguard, but my caution to you tonight, as it has been in the past, is that there are members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, members of the Design Review Board, who have openly said in an open forum that they will never, never deny a request for a variance. So to me, that is a rubber stamp of proof. If they say they'll never deny it, that means I will always approve it. So the conditional uses, they're light beige, if any tone to it at all. Plus, the new UDO gives unchallengeable power to the city zoning administrator to modify specific parts of the zoning code. No feedback requested, no notice given, no questions asked, done deal. Next thing you know, it's in writing. Y'all read it the same day that I read it. So that is just plain wrong. I don't know how the UDO can give carte blanche to anybody. I mean, don't I seem to love power? I don't want that power. The city shouldn't change because I said it should. So I will end where I started. Keep the top of Bivouac out of the new NCO. If there's a reason to call it something different than commercial, or that was always office at the top of Bivouac, you don't need to change it. You certainly don't need to say that the top of Bivouac is Jeff Weiler. It's not. It doesn't belong there. It just doesn't fit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Susan Wingard, you just signed up for doing your thing, right? So would you like,
I'm so
would
sorry.
you like to speak?
Would you like to recognize me a second time?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sharon? Sharon tonight?
Peggy's taking mine, letter at
Okay.
I didn't sign it.
I'll just take a few minutes tonight, but I want just to, probably this is the last time I'll be able to talk to a lot of you before you have your meeting. From what I understand, you had your 4-hour meeting and you didn't get to the CBDs or to our 2 protected historic districts. So I'm here tonight just to reiterate some of the points we've made in the past, and maybe one new point. And going back to what I've talked about over the different months, is that, to me, all of city government boils down to 2 things: quality of life and safety. We're lucky in Fort Thomas that we get both. We have, I know a lot of people keep their doors open, although we shouldn't do that, we won't anymore, and then we also have a super quality of life with super high property values, great schools, and a very unique situation where our kids can ride their bikes, go to the Ameristop, go to the swim club, go wherever, because we're in that kind of a town, which is very unusual. We've talked about that before. This is in contrast, for example, to Over the Rhine. So here in Fort Thomas, we're in preservation mode. We want to keep what we have is great. And Over the Rhine, that had to be turned. Safety was an issue, quality of life was an issue. So there's different types of goals and different types of strategies. So as we go into the CBD, I hope that you will keep in mind that we're trying to protect what we have. And ask Elisa to keep that goal in mind as she does recommendations. The reason that I'm here tonight is to talk a little bit about a report that our historic consultant, Wes Cunningham, did when he reviewed the proposed zoning ordinances vis-a-vis the design review guidelines. Our design review guidelines are guardrails for us. They're a way to keep Fort Thomas, Fort Thomas. Wes's report is short, succinct, and powerful, and I would ask you, it's really literally like maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs. I would ask you to review that before you go into your next session. In his report, he talks about some discrepancies that he found that are important between the proposed zoning ordinance and the design review guidelines. One of the ways he recommends bringing those into conformity is to add language to the zoning ordinance saying that if there is a discrepancy, the design review guidelines will prevail. And we've talked before about the most important of those is that when a building comes down or infill goes in, what has to happen is the height, the massing, the setbacks need to be substantially similar to what's there already. So I would ask you when you are making those discussions, or having those discussions, to please put that language into the new zoning code. Secondly, just one more request. I'm asking you when you leave tonight, look at what we have here in this CBD. If you look directly across the street, you'll see a line of houses and you'll see Fifth Third Bank. One of the things that I've heard there's a lot of interest in is putting those houses back to single family homes. This is not a new zoning consideration. It was like this for the majority of Fort Thomas. So it's a matter of right. If we could have single family homes extending the avenue back into the majority of the CBD, and also on the other end where US Bank is, if we could have single family homes there as a potential use, that'd be one way to preserve our quality of life and our safety. I'm sorry, I need a drink of water here, but I realize this stuff is complicated, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Aaron Crawford.
Was that area discussed? Was that area discussed to be able to turn back into single family? Or they turn it into single family and they can't turn it back into a duplex?
As it stands right now, the
I thought we
buildings that
discussed
are
in a couple
houses
areas.
can go back to houses, but it doesn't allow Fifth Third to go back to houses.
What about the 3 houses across the street?
Yeah, those can go back to the.
So those can go back to single family, but they cannot go back to the duplexes or the dual business once they go to single family. Is that correct?
It's actually been up in the air. They've
Yeah.
talked about it both ways.
I think you could.
That's something that.
So you just mentioned that, so it is possible for them to go back to single family houses.
It's not bad, just say, I mean, I know it's complicated,
We're
I
talking-
know it's complex.
We're talking about these houses
These
can go back to
houses
single
and then-
homes.
The way I think she has it written is as a conditional use, so just, I mean, I know it's complicated, I mean, I.
Sure,
know
well,
that-
After our meeting, I confirmed it with her,
Okay,
that
and
they
then,
can go. The Fifth Third is not. However, just like any other zoning, if somebody comes to us, let's say we pass it as is, if somebody comes to us and say, hey, we're willing to purchase this property at Fifth Third, this is our plan to put 3 houses on it, will council approve it, those are things we can make with a development agreement. Right? And then at that point, the council could determine what the houses look like, everything else. If you make it where it could just be residential, then essentially they could put any house up that fits that.
No, I was more concerned with those three houses, but I thought we discussed it, I just made.
I confirmed, after meeting with Peggy, I confirmed that they can be made into single families.
Well, let me interject for a second too, because I had asked Alyssa about that exact area towards the beginning of our joint meet, of our retreat, the long meeting that we had last week.
Wow.
Because that is of interest, and we absolutely hear what you're saying, and her response, in fact, was, yes, we'll get to this a little bit later during the presentation today, and we never did get to it. So I have that highlighted, and we'll make sure that we discuss that as a group next month when we get back together.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, man.
Okay, Carrie Ann Crawford.
Yes.
Okay, Steve Miller.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Steve Overley. I live at 7 Green Street in the proposed historic overlay district. I want to first say that I'm an attorney who practices in land use planning and zoning, both in Kentucky and have been very involved in other projects. For example, I staffed Cincinnati City Council when I worked there, and also helped draft the community benefits agreement between FC Cincinnati and the city council. I was a council member's aide assigned to that project and worked with that community development agreement, which was transformational to the West End neighborhood. Also, my wife and I this is our third home that is very historic that we have done some rehab to. We owned an 1890 Queen Anne Victorian in the North Avondale neighborhood. We took a Italianate home in the East Road Newport and took it to the studs and completely rebuilt it to historic standards, and now we are raising our family in Tower Park on Green Street. So I watch and I do want to say briefly that zoning and planning type matters are sometimes very controversial. It invokes passions from people, especially citizens, because you are affecting our private property rights. And I want to begin by just noting that the folks on Green Street, we have a development agreement with the city, which is a binding contract between the city and the people who reside on Green Street. So there are certain requirements before you engage in changes to the zoning code that we believe that you need to follow, and I've been communicating with the city solicitor, city attorney on this matter. But I wanted to just comment on a few things. I watched with great interest the meeting, the 3.5-hour meeting, and I applaud you all for sitting through that. Only weirdos like me actually like planning and zoning type stuff. So I'm just going to go through, there were a few things that were mentioned at the meeting, and I want to just clarify those for the record. Number one, a development agreement is between owners of property and a city municipal government like we have on Green Street. Is much stronger than any zoning regulation that you can pass. It runs with the land. It does not matter who the mayor is, who the city administrator is, who the council is, who the homeowners are. Those things run with the land and cannot be changed and altered but for an agreement by the city council and the homeowners collectively as a group. So any kind of commentary from a consultant or a preservationist saying that this is less lax, our development agreement and our deed restrictions are less strict than a zoning code, that's false. As a matter of law, it's false. So there was another comment about the Department of Interior guidelines and how that affects Green Street. Found that very interesting. So there was commentary that the Department of Interior standards do not apply to Green Street. That is factually false and inaccurate. If you would go to our original HOA documents, that it is Exhibit C, and it says as follows, that the exterior envelopes of the 16 residences, it's 10 now, specifications for reconditioning were based on consultation with the Kentucky Heritage Council and in accordance with National Park Service Historic Preservation Guidelines. Since 1993, Green Street has been governed by those national park standards. So any commentary that we are not already governed through our HOA documents by the National Park Service Guidelines is a false and fictitious statement by someone from the public. So we're already policing ourselves with that. So another comment, some of the council members, I couldn't figure out who was asking. We're asking questions about how our HOA works. So just to be brief, our HOA works as follows. If we have 10 members In order to get any exterior improvement passed, it takes 8 votes of the homeowners. What that means is if we have a meeting, and our meetings are ad hoc as needed, we don't meet on a regular basis. If only 6 people show up to the HOA meeting, and all 6 people approve things like my rear deck, which apparently has created some consternation and kind of flared this up when my nanny fell down the steps, broke a bone, and my daughter face planted doing an out of code deck on the back of my house. If 6 people show up at the HOA meeting and all 6 of them approve it, we then have to go out and get 2 more people to approve whatever we want to do. Then it goes to the city, and then the city approves the permitting. So we have an extra super majority of homeowners who have to approve any exterior things to the outsides of our house currently. Also in our HOA guidelines, it talks about specific colors with regard to what colors we can paint our porches. It is a very distinct Sherwin-Williams green type color. When it comes to our trim of our houses, it says Sherwin-Williams X color has to be used. That is more restrictive than anything that you could pass in a historic overlay. So to answer the question, how do we pass things? It takes 8 votes of our homeowners, of the 10 that are left in our, which is any more restrictive. There was commentary about, well, what happens if, we reach an impasse? With all due respect, KRS 100-258 and KRS 100-261, if we reach an impasse and the city doesn't approve something, we have a matter of right appeal to the Board of Adjustment. That is a matter of law, and it's also part of our declarations and part of the development agreement to the city. So there will never be an impasse. Also, just for your knowledge, this has not been brought up by the consultant or whomever. When we first discovered this back in the late fall, early winter, the HOA had an emergency meeting. We had the most participation of any HOA meeting that we've had in years, and we took a formal vote. The formal vote was 8 votes, 1 vote in favor, and 1 person was not absent against formally taking action against being put in the historic overlay district. So 8 of the 10 homeowners of all different types of people all opposed this historic overlay. We live in Tower Park. We came to a historic area, and so if we know we kind of use this cliche. We came to the nuisance. If historic preservation is a nuisance, which it is not. But we all know when we bought our homes that we had a development agreement with the city. And this is how, it's been since 1993 with very little issue. I will also caution you on one other thing, that there was discussion regarding and I don't know how much time I get. Since I see council.
Yeah, your 4 minutes over.
Okay, can I finish up in 1 minute?
Good.
If you're going to, there was discussion about implementing the historic overlay guidelines for the National Park Standards as guidelines as a stopgap. I would caution you to do that because those are very arbitrarily enforced. If you're actually going to take the big, huge step in doing historic overlay, you need to have regulations in place, not just guidelines. Guidelines are not laws. Regulations such as Newport has in the East Row and other areas are actual regulations that cost $20,000 to $30,000 to have a consultant do and write before you should adopt your historic overlay. Or in short, if you put in the guidelines as a stopgap, that's very problematic and could lead to other problems. I will tell you that members of council and the mayor, we have been working with the city attorney. It's my understanding that we are going to hopefully have a little bit of an engagement and a meeting to discuss this. And I would welcome that any of the council members would like to join in that discussion. That would be appropriate. But I just wanted to come tonight. I heard lots of questions about what goes on Green Street, and these are the actual facts of what goes on Green Street. I appreciate your time and the extra time.
Thank you. Okay, moving on with the rest of the meeting. We are down to reports of officers, fire department.
Yes, Mayor. Just a whole public fire safety reminder. We actually had fire incident a couple weeks ago, and what we found to be the cause was some discarded poles from a fire pit that was too near a structure. So if you feel like you need to discard something out of the fire pit, number one, make sure it's fully extinguished. Number two, don't put it near a structure, just to prevent anything like that from happening. That's not an isolated incident, that's something that we occur a few times a year, so just an extra word of caution to our residents, and that's all I had to add.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Stephen Fogg?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Okay, just a little bit of discussion, I just wanted to update the chief from a couple months ago when I had asked about burning Christmas trees after the season. My wife has encouraged me to tear up the ugly, very, very ugly brick fire pit that I had in my backyard, which I used to burn Christmas trees on and really enjoyed it. That is now gone, and I planted grass seed, and the grass is coming up, so I can't promise that I won't burn a tree back there in the future, but I'm being discouraged by the way, so.
As I said, cut it up in really small pieces.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Thank you. Police Department report.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple things from the packet. First, we had our detective Brandon Vance was recognized by the Children's Advocacy Center. He won the first Vicki Henderson Legacy Award. Vicki Henderson was the director of that center for 33 years and retired last year. So for him to get the first round of that award was pretty nice to see. The CAC serves children who have been involved in something traumatic or been the victim of a crime. So for him to be dedicated to investigations in that area was awfully nice for him to receive that award. Second, still in the packet there, we had our DEA take back a couple Saturdays ago. We took in 129 pounds of unused expired prescription meds. So pretty big.
It's amazing. I read that number, thought 100 pounds.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's
So twice a year, it's a pretty successful event to take in that much stuff and put it in the right spot where it gets incinerated. So thanks for everyone who participated in that. That's all I had.
I'd like to make a couple comments on this. I was looking online, I didn't realize Melissa was out of town. I was like, where is this? This report doesn't line up with what I see. Two things I want to note is that I did notice that we had quite a few people pulled over for speeding other various violations compared to last year. It looks like to me at least 19 versus 8. I don't have any questions on it, I just want to thank you. Because I realize that we're community police and we do our best, but every once in a while we have to ramp it up in order to make sure people follow the law as good as possible. So I just want to appreciate that. I think people like the safety on that. And one thing I've learned, as my brother was a prosecutor, and I think it's something that a lot of us take for granted, is that people like Detective Vance or police officers, prosecutors, we have zero idea what they really have to deal with on a daily basis. Watching these assault crimes with children, watching the video, hearing the dialogue, is something we never have to hope we have to experience ourselves personally. But they go through these things day in and day out, and they do it with respect to everybody involved. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for having to deal with that. I don't think people understand the situations they put themselves in to make our life better and safer. I think all of them, especially Vance here going through that, really deserves a lot of credit for that.
Thank you. I'll pass that along. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to receive and file.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. City Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. We did complete our April Finance Committee meeting regarding the 24-25 budget. I'm going to try not to steal any of Ben's thunder, even though it hurts. I have a really good report, but let's see how yours is. The committee approved all of our expenses. The staff did a really good job this year. We did a lot of detail of going through projects and vetting them properly, and I think council saw that, and we're really excited to make a lot of impactful things happen this year. So I appreciate all that. Council's been very good working with us and understanding the things that we're wanting to do. So tonight we do a first reading on proposed budgets, and then we'll be planning a second reading for the June council meeting. Tower Park is finishing up the installation of equipment. We had one piece of equipment damaged after it was installed, so we're trying to fix that by July 1st. Of course, I would truck back into something. It's never ending. We do have a ribbon cutting set for July 4th at 4 p.m. So if council is available at the parade, we're hoping to keep it closed off for kids unless they ride and get into there earlier. But we'll do what we can. But 4 p.m. we'll be doing a ribbon cutting, and it'll be really exciting. They should be making that deadline, so I'm getting more and more comfortable with construction crews regarding that. We did in this last month have to remove one of the large oaks that were there due to it being rotten, which was a really good thing we did, because when we took it down, there was only a couple inches around the hole inside was rot, so it would have fallen in the next few years, which made us do an analysis of the other 2 large oaks. We actually did borings, which if you've ever seen it, they do these micro drills and then they pull out the whole core. Which is really interesting. However, the other 2 large oaks there are also the same situation. One has 4 inches of solid around it, or I'm sorry, just 4 inches on that one boring. So there could be some sides that are not. And the other one has a little bit thicker, but both have been deemed to be removed. The analysis done by our tree person, and then the tree commission reviewed it and also determined that. So unfortunately, those 2 will be coming down. That'll make the total removal 10. But we are putting up 38 new trees in that area now. So that will be not something we expected, but I'm glad we did the analysis, because they were a lot worse than had previously been expected. So in the next 2 weeks, those trees will be coming down. So you'll notice that. I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of what that is. But the Tower Park Playground is coming along very nicely. Pickleball. The Highland Park, we had the bid opening shortly after our last council meeting. The bids came in just under $500,000. We had our pre-construction meeting this week, so they're going to be getting started on that 2 weeks after Memorial Day. At that time, they're going to close off the entrance from the swim club, so that'll be closed off for the duration. They will have the paving complete probably late July, and then the court should be open by the end of September. After the paving is done, it has to sit a month before we can put the sport surface on it. So just that everybody is aware of the timeline, and once things start progressing, I'll update the timeline, of course, at every meeting. But we are moving forward with that, and Regular got the low bid on that one. The track, I'm not sure if I brought this up at the council meeting last month. I think I did, but the state did award the schools $5 million that are being flowed through the city, $2.5 million each year. That is one of the things you'll notice, and we talked about in the budget, that it'll just be a $2.5 million this year and next year pass through. Joe did a good job at maneuvering that, so it didn't really skew our other numbers like the ARPA money did. So we were able to get a little more creative, just so it's truly a pass through, so it doesn't throw off. Because I was really excited this year to finally get back to a non-ARPA year of actual revenue, actual expenses, and then of course that threw a kink in it. But Joe was able to figure that out, so I'm happy about that. The other vote I am going to ask on a new business tonight from council, which we discussed also at the finance committee, was the Axon Taser 5-year agreement. That is to get the officers brand new tasers, warranted tasers, and body cameras. So it's a much higher level body camera than we have, which showed council the differences between ours and the tasers from actual scenes that the PD put together really well. With Southgate PD, who has them, compared to us, they actually did side-by-sides on actual scenes, the exact times, the exact side-by-side when officers were next to each other. And the difference is incredible. So council did approve that. I am going to ask later on here in new business just to approve for the mayor to sign that agreement. And it is a 5-year agreement. Any leases that are going over the budget, or at least going over council's term, I do want council to approve, knowing that it's going to be multi-year commitment that would have a penalty if we stopped it. So I just want that extra approval from council, because I think it's appropriate when staff's going to be spending money that's outside of the budget year over renewing. Old Route 8 is coming along. They're currently milling, and they're going to be doing the overlay. It will be done mid-June. The overlay and the asphalt should be done this month, but they've got to pave it first before they put in the guardrails. I don't know if you guys have been down there. There's some serious drop-offs, so they have to do the paving to get it up to grade, and then install the guardrails, so it still is probably gonna be middle of June, but it's coming along really nicely, and we'll be opening that here shortly. I met with KYTC this week, trying to determine if we can add a little shoulder, because we all know that even though bikes aren't allowed down there, bikes are going to be down there by the hundreds, especially when this opens. I have been trying to work with them to see if we can add a little bit more shoulder, and I don't know if that's gonna be possible just due to the limitations they have for liability, but it's something that they are open to, and they're trying to work through that. So they should be paving and lining those here in the next few weeks. Additionally, when I was meeting with them, we had a couple instances this last 2 weeks on state routes. I think you probably don't realize how many state and federal rights we have in Fort Thomas, where we have 9 of them. And that's a lot of maintenance that we assume, because the state doesn't have the manpower to come out and clear, after heavy rains, to clear rocks, to clear dead deer, things like that, they won't come out. So that means our crews come out, just like Sunday, they had to come out to remove a tree, it's double time, so that's a lot of money that we spend, that I've been getting kind of tired of. So I've met with KYTC, they have agreed to work on a reimbursement agreement with us, to be able to, whenever we have that situation on a state route, that they would allow us to submit quarterly to get reimbursed. So that's going to include any call outs, any road clearing that we need to get a bobcat or something out to clear it for them, any kind of salt and snow removal. So it's stuff that we've already been doing, but we're actually going to get reimbursed for it. So hopefully that'll be out here in the next couple of weeks. Once we get that, if it's an easy negotiation, then hopefully I'll bring that to council for next month, just to show that to council, so we can get that signed. It would start July 1st is their target with the new budget to be able to do that. So that's the first. I've been trying to do that with them for 7 years as a city administrator, and they've never agreed to that. So I don't know what has changed, but I'm going to take it. So that's kind of exciting that we're actually going to get paid for the things that we do anyway on that. And then the legislation. So we have the 23-24 budget amendment, and what that does is all the budget amendments that you've approved, council's approved over the last year, that's going to formalize that. Additionally, we've got the 24-25 budget that for first reading today, and we'll brief that here under the committees. Also, we have an ordinance for pay classification. I've done a little bit of cleanup on that this year, just like last year. We'll be doing a little bit more cleanup on that over the next 6 months, but we changed a couple minor things, and then we updated the 6% salary for the year. And then the final legislation is a resolution. This is adopting the Northern Kentucky Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan through the state. That's something the Ed District puts on. I think, Chris, weren't you a part of that? Okay, so Chris and Kevin both went to it to make sure they're representing the city of Fort Thomas. So that has been finalized and submitted to the state, and now all of the cities are approving that and adopting it. So that's the last legislation. If anyone's questions, that's all.
I got a couple of comments real quick. First of all, that agreement you worked out was amazing. I know we just had an issue on River Road, a couple curves were damaged. I think I just happened to be in here last week and talking about the rain washed some boulders down, and I don't think people realize how many state routes we have. We say 9.
We have 6 state roads. We have US 27, and then both interstates.
Yeah, Grand Avenue, River Road. People don't realize part North and South Fort Thomas Memorial Parkway that we still maintain, because that's fantastic. And if anybody hasn't been by Tower Park to see the improvements that are going down there, man, it might be a little overkill. It's looking pretty awesome, man. The kids are gonna love it, man. It's really coming together, and you can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. I was hoping you could elaborate. I know that someone came up and asked about the pickleball courts. A lot of people were asking, what kind of surface did we decide to go with, and we're doing sound barriers and rolling nets? Is that correct on that? Did we decide to do that?
Rolling nets, we're doing that 7-layer sport surface, whatever that is. Okay. That was brought up.
That's why I thought I knew the alternate business.
Yeah, we added that in, and then we'll be doing a windscreen. We're not going to do a sound barrier, because we did the analysis on it. The sound barrier wouldn't stop any sound from going up because of the.
Elevation, the height of the fence.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so, one of the things actually Wrigley brought up during our pre-construction meeting, because their guy is a big pickleballer, but he said that with the wind down there, it would throw off the ball, so he would recommend doing the netting. So we are gonna add a wind net down there, but it wouldn't be a sound. The only way to get any kind of sound barrier would be to do at least 20 feet high, and at that point, we would have to reinforce the fence just because of the wind that grabs those. So we're just gonna, we've met with residents down there that'd be most impactful about it, so we met with them this week. And we're just gonna see how it goes.
Thanks for the update.
Thank you. We're down to reports of committees. Dan, do you have a report?
I do, yeah, thank you, Mayor.
We got new business already, or did you talk about that already?
No, this is first.
Our report talk is in mine intact.
We had a finance committee meeting last month, and this is the 4th year, I believe, that I've been chair of the finance committee in Fort Thomas, and it's an awesome responsibility, and I said this at the end of our meeting. I think that having done this for a few years now, every time we go through this process, it's become better, and that credit is really all due, excuse me, to Matt and to Joe and to their staff. The analysis they provide is more comprehensive every year. Our questions are, we ask more questions, frankly, and we get the answers that we're looking for. And if we have points of contention or things that we've discussed, we do a really good job of that. So I was really proud of the meeting we had last month. And I don't want to be redundant because the mayor, we had a public hearing earlier this evening, and the mayor provided a lot of information, and Matt just provided some more in his report. But for those of you who may not have been here at 6:45 tonight, I'll just go over a couple quick high notes. The budget for this year, fiscal year 24-25, the general fund revenues are projected to exceed our expenditures after transfers by $67,227. So what that means for all of us is that we're running a very tight budget, and it's something we should be proud of. If we're going to be conservative with our finances, that means you don't take in more than you require, and I feel like we're accomplishing that with this budget. Another high point, the projected general fund operating revenue total for fiscal year 24-25 is $16,033,274. That is a 6% increase over last year, but believe it or not, a lot of that comes from things like business tax licenses, insurance premiums, things of that nature, and the city made a concerted effort. We're going to leave all the tax rates, including real estate rates and taxes, the exact same for this fiscal year. So there will not be a tax increase in that regard.
But, excuse me, is it the rate that you're keeping the same or the revenue that you're keeping the same?
It's the rate that stays the same.
But if the assessments of the homes goes up, that is indirectly raising the taxes.
Correct. Your tax bill would be higher this year than it was last year.
Okay, so the taxes are going up, just not the rate.
Correct.
I remember when the school board did that.
All the assessments are done last year.
Yeah.
New houses and things like that would go up, because like if they built last year, it would still be valued at their land, but this year they would.
I just remember when they assessed everybody like an extra 30%, and the school board actually raised their rate on top of it at a time for a 30% tax increase for the city overall.
So it's actually a fluctuating rate. So Andy, somebody can probably describe this better than me. In the late 70s, they started a law, so even though they raised taxes, so that I will raise your property value. So someone's property value raised $100,000 and somebody stayed the same. The person that stayed the same is going to pay less in taxes. Because this way.
No, I absolutely understand that.
Okay.
I'm just asking, I know rate and revenue are two different things. They mean entirely, gravely different things. So if the revenue is, to stay the same revenue with increased values, the rate has to go down.
That'd be correct.
Is the rate going down?
No, it is holding the same.
It's holding the exact same. A lot of the increase in revenue is from, like I mentioned it, the business tax licenses. I know there's an insurance fee. Those rates are all staying the same. It's just a matter of, for lack of a better term, more activity in the business market. And from an insurance standpoint, I'm sure you all see it on your personal home and auto insurance too. That's very rate driven, and we can't control the rates that insurance companies charge. But
have you included in your projections, if you pass a historic overlay, the 30% increase in insurance premiums and your increased revenue based on the 10%?
We'll talk about that at our meeting, Mr. Magley.
All right.
yeah. Just a couple other points. So that was our revenues. So the expenditures for fiscal year 24-25 total $14,764,867. That's a 5.5% increase over last year. Again, as we always try to do, that's largely attributed to wage increases, health insurance costs, etc. And so there's really not much extra discretionary spending. However, I do want to just hit a couple high notes on some of the major budget expenses that we have in this year's budget. And Matt and the mayor have already talked to some of these, but just quickly, the $2.5 million that Matt mentioned for the sports complex up at Tower Park, that's transferred to the Fort Thomas Independent School District, and that's from the state budget. Those are state funds, and there'll be another additional $2.5 million the next year also. For the police department, we're going to talk about this in a second, but $60,000 for the Axon taser lease for updated tasers and body cameras, $4,100 for less lethal launcher, $17,600 to update the Glock duty pistols, and then $200,000 for 3 new patrol vehicles. And we've talked about all this at length, and I think that we're all in support of this. But if you don't really pay attention, this money is necessary to be spent, especially on obviously things to keep our officers safe, but the vehicles themselves are a representation of our city, and we need to have vehicles that are up to date and ready to perform when need be. So for the fire department, we have $1.5 million for an aerial truck that we expect to be delivered this year, and then $300,000 for an ambulance that will be ordered this year. And I think based on talking to Matt, it was very necessary to order that now, just from the timing it takes to have the thing built and scheduled to be delivered and all that. From the recreation department, $45,000 in game room improvements. That's equipment and flooring. $36,000 for mess hall windows and tables. And then at parks, and we've talked about it, I know pickleball is very popular. The $500,000 budgeted for the courts at Highland Park. $130,000 for the General Thomas statue at Tower Park. $300,000 for the Carlisle Park stormwater plan. $50,000 for the Mayfield parking lot and turnaround, and I believe that's the area right past that last stop sign when you're entering the park, correct? Okay. $30,000 for the installation of the scope statue, $150,000 tennis court upgrades, so that's pavement and fencing, $260,000 for the Tower Park Sports Complex, and then when it comes to public works, we have budgeted $270,000 for 3 vehicles, which include a 2.5-ton dump truck with a snowplow, and $40,000 for holiday lighting, which I know we've talked to a lot of citizens about, and it's very necessary and should be something nice to have come next holiday. So those are my high points, and again, just really appreciate the process and everyone involved. We had everybody, I think almost the entire council attended our finance committee meeting, which is unheard of in my time, and we had great input from the community as well, so very happy with it. Thank you.
Great report, thanks, Ben. All right, no old business, new business. Axon taser.
Yeah, so council has seen the taser agreement. If there's any further questions about it, I can answer, or Casey can answer. If not, I'd like a motion to, for the mayor and I to sign this agreement to get it to the 5-year lease to start doing that immediately, because it takes a few months to get this set up. Just a motion to sign the 5-year lease.
Motion to sign the lease for the taser.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? This is spending money, so we'll call vote.
Adam Blau.
Aye.
Ben Hendry.
Aye.
Eric Strange.
Aye.
Andy Ellison.
Aye.
Lauren McIntosh.
All right, we're down to finance committee report.
I'd just like to make a new business. I just would like to
Hang
make
on,
an announcement.
can I make some new business real quick?
Of course you can.
So I have the pleasure of speaking to Moyer Grade School 3rd grade class on Friday. Through the, Steve Airy had invited me to come because I'm on city council and the small business center. And he runs and teaches the junior achievement program. And he's part of it. There's a lot of people that do it for all the different public schools here in town. And when I was talking, there was a young man named Conrad who, when talking about Highland Park, asked about how at the Gaga court, when balls left the court as they were playing, they rolled down the hill and off into the woods. And he asked if maybe there was any way that we could build some kind of a fence to keep the ball from rolling all the way down into the woods with it, and I said, well, you're talking to the right guy. This is something that we take to city council, and I will talk to Matt. I talked to Matt this morning. We're gonna build a temporary fence to see how it goes. And on Wednesday, it's either Wednesday or Thursday, I'm gonna go back up to Moyer to congratulate him on his idea and being involved in his community and finding a solution to a problem.
Make sure you follow up with me, make sure we get the temporary fence. I'll put it here.
Get the tent.
I just want to make a presentation at the end before we adjourn. I just want to make that announcement now before we got that. Thanks.
So we are at the Finance Committee report on disbursements.
Sure, I'm happy to read this in Melissa's absence. This is the report of disbursements from the Finance Committee for April 16th to May 16th, 2024. General Fund, $681,028.32. Public Works KDOT Fund, $31,537.97. The CBD Revitalization Fund, $20,257.06. And then the waste fee, $129,672.34, for a total of $862,495.69. We, the undersigned members of the Finance Committee, recommend that warrants numbered 25314 to 25457 be approved, and the treasurer be authorized to issue checks for their payment. Ben Pendry, chairperson; Andy Ellison, member; Eric Strange, member.
All right, entertain a motion. Concurrent recommendation. There you go. Is there a second? Any discussion? Roll call vote, please. Yep. Okay. Right.
Ben Pendry.
Aye.
Eric Strange.
Aye.
Andy Ellison.
Aye.
Lauren McIntosh. Adam Black.
Okay, we're down to ordinance resolutions and orders. Ordinance 01/2024.
An ordinance amending a general fund budget for the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, for the fiscal year 7/1/2023 through 6/30/2024 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government.
That's first reading, so we're down to ordinance 02.
An ordinance adopting a general fund budget, municipal road aid fund budget, debt service fund budget, capital projects CBD fund, health insurance fund, and waste disposal fund budget for the city of Fort Thomas, Campbell County, Kentucky, for the fiscal year 7/1/2024 through 6/30/2025 by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government.
All right, that also is first reading. We're down to ordinance 03.
An ordinance amending the personnel and pay classification plan by unilaterally increasing the official pay table by 6% effective on July 1/2024, and amending the compensation ranges for various positions.
All right, one more. We have a resolution, R01/2024.
A resolution of the city of Fort Thomas adopting the Northern Kentucky Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan 2024.
For that, we need a motion to approve.
Approved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
All right, thank you for your time today in this little presentation I have at the end here. I also want to, Matt, did you make copies of everything if anybody needs one? For council, not for anybody else in the public? It's
90 pages.
Yeah, I got you. If anybody needs a copy of this at the end, let me know. I'll be happy to give them my copy or send them something. This will take me a minute to get through, so I appreciate your time on this. I want the public and the council to know that I have been in communication with our city attorney, Tim Schneider, and the city manager, Matt Kramer, over the last couple of months over issues concerning Mayor Haas's actions back in 2019 when it came to the One Highland Agreement. I summarized these concerns in a multi-page letter that was presented to Tim and Matt, and I can provide to anyone that would like a copy. After a couple meetings with them where we discussed my concerns, I was provided paperwork that I had never previously seen before, nor do I have a recollection that this paperwork was ever presented to the council or public that we represent. Prior to that paperwork being presented, the only information council had been provided was a statement made during a closed door session on May 20th, 2019, where Mayor Haas was then asked to leave the room so further discussion with the development agreement could proceed, and he continued to be a liaison for the development agreement and the city and communicate. I believe the information that I have disclosed with Tim and Matt, Mayor Haas, and the council overwhelmingly shows that Mayor Haas abused information he was privy to because of his position as mayor of Fort Thomas. He then used that information to become personally and financially involved in the One Highland project by agreeing to purchase the BB&T building from Grywe Development if the city of Fort Thomas didn't approve Grywe's proposed development plan. At the city council meeting on July 15, 2019, Mayor Haas was the deciding, that means tie-breaking vote on this deal that put the responsibility and liability of the BB&T building back onto the city. The vote stated that the city would be responsible for purchasing it back from Grywe Development if certain conditions were not met. It also should be noted that in June of 2019, less than 1 month prior to the Mayor Haas's deciding vote on the development agreement, that I believe he worked behind closed doors to release his put option to Grywe Development, but never disclosed any of that information to council or the public to my knowledge. Regardless of Mayor Haas's intentions or any advice he may have been given, I can give you over 800,000 reasons he should have disclosed this to not only the council but the public. I've done everything I can to try and ensure this gets handled properly, which is why I urge council to have a hearing to discuss how we would like to proceed with this matter moving forward now that I provided all the information. I am more than happy to go in on my own, stand on a plank by myself. I truly believe, in light of the information everyone has received today, I sent it out to the council members, it is not just my responsibility, but ours as representatives of the public to make sure that we are protecting their interests in every way possible from situations like these. And I can urge anyone that would like a copy of anything I provided to council, please feel free to reach out. My card is here, you have my email address, and I'll be happy to give you anything you need to see exactly how this went down and why.
This has been brought up on numerous occasions. You brought it up several times with the previous council. At the time, Roger Peterman was an attorney that specializes in this kind of activity. He was on council and he went through explaining to you. As far as the put agreement, I offered an option to keep the BB&T property alive in the development plan. There was great interest in not having another bank in that building. And we wanted to have that location used for a restaurant because that was a high priority in the comprehensive plan. Several attorneys looked at this situation. Not only Roger Peterman, who was on council and he does this kind of stuff for a living, but also Jan Seidenfeld, the city attorney. So when I made this offer, they didn't express any concern at all. All they did was express appreciation for the fact that I was willing to potentially put up my money to keep this development plan alive. Had they said anything, expressed any concern about, well, this might look bad or whatever, but they did not. They were just grateful that I was willing to do this. Well, the put was released in June, a month prior to the actual vote. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no issue here. But if council or anyone that wants to pursue this further, there are methods to do so. And you can contact Tim Snyder, the city attorney, and he'll describe what those methods are in order to do this. And I've been cooperating and will continue to cooperate in providing any information that anybody needs about this.
I would just like to have further discussion with council. I realize that Councilman Beazle is not here at this time. I realize some of you are just being introduced to this information, which I can only assume that I sent you today. I would like to have a special meeting on this to discuss it further, regardless of his intentions. Have no financial buying to any building, any development agreement is not right. It's unethical and should not have been done. Once that was accomplished, then you should recuse yourself. So that being said, I don't know if you guys want to have any further discussion tonight. If we want to wait till we can get a joint meeting with Councilman Diesel to have that done, so we're all six sitting together. I'd be happy to meet with anyone on their own to hear my side of the story. I was there.
Are you moving to go into executive session?
I would like other people to decide how they'd like to do this. I think it's a gray area. I think that enough was done behind the doors. I'd like to see more done out in public when it comes to discussion, but I also don't want to put you guys in a situation where you can't discuss it openly and freely. Obviously, no decisions are made in executive session. So if you guys will tell me what you would like to do, I will be more than happy to go along with I value your opinions, your decision. How would you like to discuss this further?
I haven't had any time, I saw the email maybe 30 minutes before I walked in here, so I haven't had time to really get into anything. So I don't know, and I think it would be good to have everyone here. So.
I would think that it'd be good to have everybody here, but I haven't, wrapped my head completely around all this, but I know just from reading some things today that I have questions that, as far as timeline and stuff, and just being able to, so I don't know about right now executive commission, but I wouldn't mind having a meeting.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there's nothing to comment on the moment because I haven't.
No, I completely understand that. I didn't expect anything to happen tonight. That was not my intention. Was come here anyway to make a decision. I didn't force anybody to make a decision. This doesn't come lightly, or the decision will not be made easily, but we have a ethical and moral obligation to make sure we're representing the people of the best of our ability.
My thought is that we could discuss the setting of a special meeting today, or we could adjourn today and set a special meeting later if that's necessary.
Well, I know how easy it is to get everybody in the same time frame, so.
I would also suggest that maybe, because I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what is law and what's not for how a lot of the stuff reads. So, I would appreciate if you were there where we can be there.
And I just have a question about the quote unquote next meeting, whatever, is that, what's that look like? Is that executive session? Is that,
Generally what happens is council will go into executive session. There's a exemption for that to talk about, any discipline or termination of an employee or a member. You guys are all considered elected officials or members. So that way council can discuss, all the details of this without having to worry kind of about what they're talking about. And then once everybody has discussed that in executive session, then come out and then we can make a decision to move forward for whatever direction. I mean, generally what this would be a complaint on the ethics board. So it'd be a complaint filed, the ethics board would look into it and make their determination, and whatever their determination, if they found any evidence or anything, then it would go back to council for discipline. And if they, at that point, council could do a separate investigation if that was necessary to move forward. But from Tim and my opinion is that this should be an ethics board investigation, not necessarily council.
I think as a council, we should be deciding if we believe there as a whole. Like I said, I'm willing to go out on my own here, but I think after discussion, I would like everybody's opinion on what they believe has transgressed here, so that we can do it as a whole or individually. I'm fine with all of that, but then after talking to Tim and Matt, who have been fantastic throughout this process, that the ethics board may even decide to hire their own counsel, independent counsel, to review all the actions. Which that would be up to them to do, I believe.
The very first thing they do is they've got 30 days to make a preliminary inquiry, decide if they don't spell it out, but it sure sounds like, feels like probable cause. Then if that's the case, they can decide how they want to proceed, setting hearings. There's a presumption in favor of or in support of the conduct. It has to be proven by clear and convincing evidence, which is a high standard. It's not the typical civil standard is preponderance of the evidence. Obviously, criminals, reasonable doubt, clear and convincing is much closer to that. But that's kind of the framework generally.
But I think I do agree with Adam. It would be good for council to discuss it, at least so council understands what's being alleged here. it's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, you know, if a council member wants to talk about something, I think we should all get together and, you know, have a discussion on that, but I just wanna be clear, what we're discussing would, I would assume, would be what would be the next step.
Right.
If anything, and so one would be an ethics board review, is what you said, is your recommendation.
Right.
What are the other clear, options,
I mean,
from a legal standpoint that we would be discussing?
I mean, council, the only time I would, and Tim can correct me, but just, I've been through 17 ethic violations in my career, but, generally, council would do the investigation and everything if they were looking for impeachment, you know, direct impeachment, not worried about any kind of an investigation per se. So that's generally what council, if council would take an investigation. I think this is so detailed that it would benefit to have the ethics board look at it, just because there's a lot of facets to this. This is not just a clear cut.
We also have 3 attorneys on our ethics board.
Correct.
And really, the possibilities are nothing. Someone takes it, either a person or the council recommends it going to the ethics board, it needs to be a sworn complaint. Or if, like Matt said, if you wanted to pursue your own designation of independent counsel to do an investigation for purposes of, really, if you're gonna do that, you're talking more about impeachment, because if it's a ethics violation, that's what the ethics board is there for.
Is it the ethics board that's
This is
there?
just for council right now. I'll talk to you afterwards to answer your question.
Thanks.
So how
So,
would that,
you want-
are we thinking special, council meeting to have this discussion?
With Jeff.
The special council meeting.
I think that would be a much more productive.
Yeah, you would go into executive session from that.
So that's.
So,
I think it's a lot of information, and I think it would be best to be on an individual date versus an actual, council meeting and drag it out another 2 hours afterwards. More people have to get home and do things. I think we could do it during the day, you know what I mean, since we're talking and not making any decisions really at that time.
well, if council wants, tomorrow I'll start trying to figure out a date and time that works for everybody, if that's a direction that council wants.
Just another point of clarification, I think it's obviously critically important to have Tim there and Matt there and the mayor there as well. I'd like to, I mean, this is something we need to talk about as adults, and, yeah.
I thought you guys said that the mayor would not be at this.
So, we can do whatever council wants. Like, I think it started off would be good for a whole, maybe exclude the mayor, maybe exclude you. That way, you know, we can just kind of, that way council can kind of talk without, probably, they might want to talk without both of you there, might want to talk with one of you to ask you questions, you leave to ask mayor questions. So it's really whatever council wants, but I think the initial.
I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Right. I think initially, everybody have some talks, and then we can kind of start, let council kind of decide who leaves, who asks questions, stuff like that. We'll just see how it goes, and that sounds good for everybody. Okay, well, then that's what I'll do. I'll start reaching out and getting something set, and then we'll advertise that as a special meeting. Thank you.
Entertaining motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. Favor, say aye. Thank you all.